An SEQF Fidelity audit is designed to measure how closely a service is adhering to the supported employment model. We follow a 5-stage model here in Europe. It's been agreed by the European Union, and it has 5 distinct phases and expectations of what services do in each of those stages. So, for example, stage 2 would include vocational profiling, stage 4 would be job analysis. We would go in and look for that. Is a service completing vocational profiles? Is a service completing job analysis? And then we know they're following the model, which says that we job match people and then we arrange in work support. So Fidelity audit is really just how close does this service do what we want them to do as a supported employment practitioner, supported employment agency. And if we can get everyone to follow the same model, then providers, jobs like employers and participants in supported employment know what they're getting. They're always going to get that consistency.
So the supported employment quality framework is a set of standards that services are working towards. So as part of the audit, we will look at how the service is working, how they're meeting their quality framework, the areas that they're really excelling in, and areas that they might need further support and development. And then over time, we can see how that impacts on job outcomes and job sustainability as well, using the Fidelity model. I think the audit's important because it gives a really clear guidance and framework to work towards. And I think for services, even when they're not being audited, it's a framework that they can come back and revisit to help keep on track and focused and understand how the different elements work together to provide best practice. And I think for the audit purpose itself, that it provides some consultancy and some advice and guidance, because I think it can be very hard when you're doing the role and you're very involved in the day-to-day runnings until somebody comes in from an outside point of view to have a look at what's going well and what areas need to evolve, and then to provide that quality work moving forward.
Audits are important because they keep us accountable to our stakeholders, the people that we're looking for work for. As somebody who managed a service myself, when you're getting results and things are going well and no one's complaining, you can almost become complacent and say, well, no one's complaining. No, people are getting jobs. We're doing as well as we can. We can always improve. We can always do better. And actually, it's good to take that step back and let someone else come in and say, do you know what? Let's acknowledge all these wonderful things you're doing. But wouldn't it be even better if we did this as well? I think it really benefits providers who are open to continuous improvement and learning from their peers, because that's another thing we do as auditors. We go and see so many providers and so many examples of good practice. We don't have all the answers. I wish I did. But when we see wonderful things happening, we go and see somebody else who's maybe struggling with employer engagement or finding job seekers who really want to participate. We can share practice. We can say, well, we've been to a different part of the country and they found this works really well. So I know not everyone finds the SEQF process fun. It can be, being honest, being audited can be stressful. It can feel like you're being scrutinised. It can sometimes feel quite personal if you've invested yourself into the service. But I would highly recommend it. I would view us as critical friends, people who genuinely want the best outcomes for you and your stakeholders. Invite us in. So during an audit, we tend to have a timetable before we go in. Now that can be changed on the day because we've got an evidence-based approach. So providers fill out a toolkit telling us where we probably will find the evidence. Then we go in and look for it. And we'll invite in job seekers to talk about their experiences. We'll invite employers in to talk about their experiences. And we'll look at the documentary evidence. So we will look at someone's vocational profile and see what the practitioner has said about the person, what they found out. Then we'll talk to the person and find out, how involved were they with the profile, how much do they understand what's happening. Then if they've got a job, we'll talk to the employer, we'll look at the job analysis and we'll triangulate that. We'll look for a vocational profile that matches what the person said about their hopes and dreams. And then we'll find an employer in a job analysis where the person was right for the employer and the employer got what they needed from the post. And we'll bring all that together. we tend to have a sample picked at random of job seekers and employers. As we go along, if we find things that are there every time, so every vocational profile we look at is brilliantly done, it's full of narrative where we could see how someone could be placed. We'll say, right, we don't need to see any more of them, but potentially we haven't seen any evidence of in-work support. Would you find us some evidence and bring it in? So it's 2 days of saying, we haven't seen this yet, can you bring us? It can be really responsive. I think people sometimes can feel like we're putting them on the spot. Can you find us this? Sometimes people have to be honest and turn around and go, no, actually, we don't do job analysis. That's okay. That gives us something to work on in that development plan. So on the day, expect to be asked to find lots of evidence to show us that you're doing things, to bring people out for us to speak to. Expect happy, smiley auditors, so who really do want the best for your service, and that is why we're there.
Audits were really busy, and I think day one is particularly tough. It's the day where we I hope we get there, we arrive, and we talk through what we're going to be doing for the day. Um, we will interview job coaches, support employment teams, employers, job seekers, people in work who've had support, sometimes families. We also like to interview referring agencies to make sure they understand the remit of the service. We'll look at marketing materials. So it's quite a busy time. And by the end of day one, we kind of have a good feel for what's going well. We might have gaps where we're not got clear on where the evidence is going to come from. So we'll use that time with the service to say, this is where we've got to so far, and this is where we would like to look at tomorrow. And we would really like to see examples of this or of that. So it's really quite, whilst it's busy, it's very supportive way of doing the audits, because sometimes we know the information's there, they just not have shown it to us yet. And sometimes we hear of things happening, but there's no evidence of it. And I think services can struggle with that a little bit because like, we do it, but they can't show us. And it is an evidence-based format, so we need to make sure that the work that people are doing is evidenced. On the second day, we have a really clear idea of sort of how well someone's doing, and any areas of development we might be looking for. And it all seems, for me, it all comes together nicely on the second day, and we can then provide some feedback and indicative scoring. So we will give an indicative scoring on the day, and then we follow up with a report of all the practice that we've seen and areas of recommendations, and the recommendations are all linked to the framework.
So when we audit providers, there's a few outcomes. There's the outcome that they will not be able to provide enough evidence, or they're not following, maybe they can provide evidence, but it shows that they don't follow the model and they wouldn't hit the threshold to have a kite mark. Then we have a threshold where they do get a kite mark and it's accredited. Then we have another threshold where they're marked as good. Then we have a final threshold where they're marked as excellent. We want the accreditation to allow providers of sort of jobs and commissioners and all the people that we work with to understand how closely a service is following the model. And for really good services that follow the model and get brilliant outcomes, to have that recognition. So employers can go to them and go, right, you're an accredited provider. I know that you follow this model.